pushing. Hamas must never be in existence after now. We want to take a look at how this war is going in Gaza, as we have joined us in this virtually this morning, the spokesperson to the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. We have Eylon Levy on the show this morning. Mr. Eylon, we thank you very much for being part of the program today.
Thank you for having me on the show.
All right, so on Thursday, I did watch live proceedings of what happened at the United Nations Emergency Special Session on the war between your country and Hamas. And I did see your representative at that point in time really speaking and even showing pictures of what kind of atrocities Hamas committed in your country. Where are you now as you even move around ground invasion to get Hamas totally rooted from that axis?
It has been 21 days since the October 7th massacre, and Israel is not only still burying victims, we're not only still identifying victims, we're still finding bodies. On October 7th, Hamas invaded Israel and launched a brutal massacre that murdered over 1,400 people. They beheaded people. They burned whole families alive. They cuffed children and their families, and they shot them. They tortured and mutilated people. They raped little girls. They committed atrocities that remind us of the worst crimes that ISIS committed. And since then, Hamas has been firing rockets at us non-stop. In the last 21 days, we've had 8,000 rockets fired at Israel. I had to run to a bomb shelter twice yesterday because Hamas fired rockets at Tel Aviv. And that is why our mission is clear. We will totally defeat Hamas in response to the October 7th massacre. There can be no compromise and there can be no ceasefire with this evil organization. You know, I don't remember after Boko Haram abducted 270 girls, anyone calling for a ceasefire, anyone saying that the international community should stop fighting terrorism. Sometimes the world sees evil. It sees what President Biden called sheer, pure, unadulterated evil. And that's what we're fighting. And we're fighting this war so that Hamas can never, ever, ever again hurt our people. This war is going to end with an Israeli victory. Hamas started this war, and we're going to end it.
Mr. Levy clearly stated, I told you that we also were in touch with what happened during the United Nations General Assembly, where we were expecting that the resolution will be arrived at to see how the crisis there could be resolved. Your ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, did say that your country is not at war with Palestine, but with Hamas. So it seems as if the world, that a lot of people don't understand that. They just feel that Israel, because of its might, is bringing in a war against Hamas, at the same time ignoring the fact that civilians in Palestine are being hit every day. How do you respond to that?
We're not fighting the Palestinians, we're not fighting Gaza, we're fighting Hamas. We're fighting the ISIS-like terror organization that committed the October 7th massacre that, let me put into context, was the deadliest terror attack in world history after 9/11. Now, Hamas is a dangerous enemy. It has entrenched and embedded itself inside civilian areas. It has built its terror tunnels underneath people's homes, under schools, under hospitals. It is using the people of Gaza as human shields. And we don't want the people of Gaza to be hurt because our fight is against Hamas, not against them. That's why we're asking them to move temporarily for their own safety so that we can strike Hamas infrastructure. Because every Hamas terrorist, every Hamas rocket launcher, every Hamas command and control center in the Gaza Strip is a legitimate military target as we defend ourselves from the October 7th massacre and the ongoing barrage of rockets coming in from Israel. Hamas is doing everything it can to maximize civilian casualties and kill as many people as possible, and we're targeting Hamas and doing everything we can to minimize civilian casualties. And the tragedy is that Hamas is stopping people from escaping. Hamas has actually set up roadblocks inside the Gaza Strip to stop civilians from getting out of harm's way. And we continue to urge people in Gaza to move towards the south of the Gaza Strip, because in the days ahead, we're going to see very heavy fighting in the north. We're going to destroy the terror infrastructure that Hamas has built underneath people's homes. And in order to destroy them, we need people to get out of the way. Our fight is against Hamas. It's against the terror organization that did the October 7th massacre, not the people. not the Palestinian people. And I hope that when this war ends, and it will end, and it will end with an Israeli victory and the defeat of Hamas, we're going to create the space in which something more peaceful, something more reasonable can be created. But for that to happen, we have to destroy Hamas. And we're grateful actually for all the support that we've received from around the world, including from your country, people who understand that the crimes against humanity that Hamas committed are simply unjustifiable. There's no way to justify the murder of so many people, the abduction of 229 people into the Gaza Strip, including 30 children, including babies whose parents were murdered. There is no excuse for this, and we're going after the people who did this, and they will pay.
Okay. Mr. Levy, let's now take a look at what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said he would do. You just chronicled what he said he would do, but many people around the world want to understand how your operations in Gaza will continue. You just mentioned the fact that Hamas is preventing people from escaping, which means that your ground operations may still put a lot of civilians in the harm's way. How do you intend to go around this while still achieving your targets?
Israel is going to do everything necessary to destroy the terror organization that committed the October 7th massacre. This war is going to end with Hamas no more, so it can never again harm our people or commit an atrocity like October 7th. Now, we're trying to minimize harm to civilians. We're asking them to get out of harm's way in areas where there's going to be very heavy fighting, and Hamas is stopping them. And it's important to understand that the civilian suffering inside the Gaza Strip, the suffering as a result of Hamas deciding to declare war against our people, is heartbreaking. And the people who are responsible for that are the terrorists who committed the October 7th massacre. The people responsible for the suffering inside the Gaza Strip are the government of the Gaza Strip, Hamas, which has embedded itself in civilian areas and stolen humanitarian aid and attacked the crossings and attacked the electricity lines that were bringing electricity into the Gaza Strip before the war. Hamas is responsible for all the suffering we're seeing inside the Gaza Strip, inside Israel, and we're determined to make it pay. And you know what? The day after we defeat Hamas, the day after we destroy this terror organization, I'm sure that life is going to be much better for the people of the Gaza Strip as well, because they will no longer be run by an evil terror organization that exploits them to try to murder our people.
Two more questions before we allow you to go. Now, it's not all about Hamas. You also have the Islamic Jihad. You have also Hezbollah that you've been dealing with in some weeks now. How do all of this come together for you in Israel?
It's important you mention Islamic Jihad. Just last week, we saw that Palestinian Islamic Jihad, another terror group, fired a rocket at Israel from inside the Gaza Strip. It exploded mid-air, and the shrapnel hit the parking lot of a hospital and killed Palestinians. We know that at over 500, 600 rockets fired inside the Gaza Strip have landed inside the Gaza Strip, causing death and destruction. And that just tells you how little value Hamas attaches to human life. Hamas is part of a regional alliance headed by Iran. Iran is the head of the snake. The Iranian regime says it wants to destroy the state of Israel. It wants to murder all the Jews. Iran has been clear that its goal is a genocide of the Jewish people. And its allies, its proxies, are Hamas in the Gaza Strip, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen. They're all part of an axis of evil inside the Middle East that are trying to destabilize the region, sow chaos and destruction, destroy peace and prosperity. Now, we don't want to fight on several fronts. Hamas is trying to bring other actors into the war. Hamas is telling Hezbollah, we want you to fight. We want you to fire more rockets at Israel. We don't want to fight on two fronts. We're focusing on Hamas. We're focusing on the terror organization that murdered 1,400 of our friends and family on October 7th. But if Hezbollah drags us into a full-scale war, if Hezbollah forces us to defend our people, we will do it. We will defend our people, we will fight, and we're ready to do that. Okay. And I think it's very important that the United States has sent 2 battle carrier groups into the Middle East as a very clear message to Iran and to its regional proxies and terror groups, saying if you're thinking of messing with Israel and the Israelis, don't do it, because we have their back. And I think it's important. We don't want an escalation. We don't want an escalation, but if it happens, we're ready to fight.
Absolutely, we know that the UK and the US stood for you to veto Russia's resolution, which some have considered to be the United for Peace draft resolution to perhaps bring an end to this war, or at least promote a ceasefire. What is Israel looking forward to in the drafted resolution, United for Peace resolution by the United Nations, that can make you maybe consider a ceasefire or perhaps a total end to the war in Gaza?
Israel is building an international coalition. We're building an international coalition to back us to destroy Hamas, just as the world destroyed ISIS nearly 10 years ago, because Hamas is worse than ISIS. And just as the world came together to defeat ISIS, we're going to do the same with Hamas. We had the British Prime Minister in Israel a few days ago, and he said the UK wants Israel to win. We had President Biden here. He said the US will make sure Israel has everything it needs to win. We had the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, who said that Israel must fight terror without mercy. And we know that the free world, we know that every nation of conscience is behind us, and they want us to defeat and destroy the terror organization that burned, beheaded, raped, tortured, and mutilated its way through our communities on October 7th. What we need is the world to say clearly, Israel has a right and duty to defend itself. That right and duty to defend itself under international law includes destroying the terror organization that did October 7th, so it can never hurt our people again. And we're grateful for all the international support we've received, and we know that nations of conscience, the free world, nations that support peace and hate terrorism are behind us, and we feel that support from all over the world.
Eylon Levy, spokesperson to the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, we thank you very much for your time and submission on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, there you just saw the discussion that we have with the